Shalom. Welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Delmar Chabad Center, and today again our topic is going to be Jewish heroes of America. Now we talked about in previous shows about the different aspects of the country that the Jewish people have excelled in. We're talking about arts, the sciences, and we're dedicated a show to sports. But one idea that many people don't understand is that Jewish people are also military heroes in this country. Now we talked about once that the Jewish people were, even though it's small numbers, they were heroes in Civil War. Today we're going to be talking about, though, a little bit more modern history. We're going to talk about the Korean War and the Vietnam War, where the Jewish people enlisted, participated, and we're going to hear now a few times where they actually became heroes of these war efforts. Now, I don't know, again, of course, your political views, how you felt about the Korean and Vietnam War, but let's keep in mind that our government did call upon our national forces, which means our people and our sons and daughters, to fight the war, and all political reasons behind that they had a job to do, and they did it, and they should be at least honored for accepting that duty, and number two, for, like we're going to see now, actually excelling in that duty. So this is Corporal Abraham Geller, hero in Korea. When the North Korean forces invaded South Korea on June 25th, 1950, the United Nations authorized its member nations to give support to South Korea. 15 nations responded, including the United States. General Douglas MacArthur was appointed as commander of the United Nations fighting forces. As in the past, Jews in America responded to their nation's call to arms. Billy Rose, in his widely syndicated column, Pitching Horseshoes, tells of the heroism of the United States Marine Corporal Abraham Geller of New York City, Lower East Side. Geller was the son of a rabbi. The family lived near Delancey Street. In the Marine Corps, Geller always awakened a half hour earlier before the others so he could go through the ritual of Orthodox morning prayers. His regiment had been pushing the enemy back. The regiment had crossed a Han and cut the Seoul-Hansung Road. The soldiers bedded down in hastily dug foxholes to get a few hours' sleep. They knew that in the morning they were going to fight their way towards the Korean capital. An hour before dawn, only ones awake were the sentries. Captain George O'Connor, who was figuring out strategies to use, the regiment moved ahead, and Geller, who started his morning prayers. He directed and coordinating When Geller finished praying, O'Connor told him to get a cup of coffee from the chow truck. "Thanks, Captain," said Geller, "but today is Yom Kippur, and I'm not supposed to eat anything until sundown." O'Connor was amazed that Geller wouldn't eat until the day was over. Geller fasted and observed his holiday as well as a Jew could when in combat. That morning, the regiment moved forward. The advance moved slowly as the enemy put up stiff resistance. The casualties were high for both sides. Dead bodies were all over the field. One of the badly wounded North Korean was playing dead as Geller's company moved forward. Geller was standing a few feet from O'Connor when he saw the North Korean move. He pulled out his bayonet and made a dive for the enemy soldier. Geller managed to kill him, but he also stopped 3 bullets that were intended for O'Connor. The fighting was so heavy that it was 3 hours before Geller received a shot of penicillin. He was then carried into the operating room. The surgery lasted an hour. O'Connor waited for it to be over. When the surgeon came out, he was there to greet him. "How is he doing?" O'Connor asked. "He is doing well. The bullets went through his abdomen, and the penicillin was a factor in preventing peritonitis. In a matter of speaking, Geller owes his life to the fact that when he was shot, there was hardly any food in his stomach." O'Connor shook his head as he started to understand a little more about the meaning of fasting on Yom Kippur. Tibor Reuben, an unusual hero of the Korean War. Tibor Reuben's bravery during the Korean War is probably unparalleled in the history of American fighting forces. That is why many organizations and individuals are involved in a major campaign to have Congress award him the Congressional Medal of Honor. Reuben, a Hungarian Holocaust survivor, lost his parents in a Nazi concentration camp in the latter part of World War II. He managed to stay alive and he was liberated. He came to the United States a year and a half later and enlisted in the Army to fight in Korea. While in Korea, he broken his leg and he was shipped to an Army hospital in Japan. Although his leg was not completely healed, he was assigned to Company 1, 8th Cavalry Regiment, which was engaged in fighting the enemy. Former Sergeant Randall J.J. Breer wrote in a letter to the President of the United States, "Although his leg was not completely healed, Tibor went about his everyday chores, always helping others who needed a boost, never concerned for his own health or safety. I warned him to be more cautious since the enemy was out in front of us. When a cry for help was heard, Tibor managed to be the first one on the scene." On November 1st, 1950, Tibor was wounded with shrapnel from a grenade in the left hand and chest. He and others of his company were captured by the Chinese, who were fighting with the Korean Communist government. The Chinese forced the captured American soldiers, including the wounded and the sick, to march a hard and tedious distance to their prisoner of war camp. Tibor and Father Emil Capon, who later died in the prison camp, were both wounded but were carrying stretchers and assisting others who could not walk. Tibor and Chaplain Capon were risking their lives when, during rest breaks, they went up and down the line to console the tired soldiers, urging them to continue the march. Those who lagged behind were shot by the enemy. The death rate in the prisoner of war camp was running between 30 and 40 men a day. There were shortages of food, medical attention, and medicine. The soldiers were still wearing their summer clothes when the temperatures would be between 30 and 40 degrees. Reuben, who had learned to survive in a Nazi concentration camp, applied his experience to sneak out during the night to steal food from the Chinese. He would give this food to the other prisoners, especially the sick and dying. Every time he went out for food, Tibor was risking his life. He felt that this was his way of getting back at the enemy, as they were short on food for themselves. Tibor was a prisoner for 2.5 years. His fellow prisoners credited him with saving 35 to 40 lives with his daring, almost nightly ventures of stealing food for his comrades. Tibor had turned down a number of offers from the Chinese to send him back to his native Hungary. Tibor Reuben and the others were finally released and sent back to the American hospital in Freedom Village, Korea. He was a stretcher case, still suffering from his wounds without complaints. He had been recommended for the Congressional Medal of Honor by the Jewish War Veterans of the United States of America, Korean Prisoner of War Association, many of his comrades in the prisoner of war camp, individuals, and other organizations. Many heroes received their awards and recognition through an action that could take minutes, hours, even a few days. Tibor's heroism and bravery was to be over a 2.5-year period, never knowing when he would be caught and executed. Tibor Reuben is currently residing in California. The campaign to have him receive the Congressional Medal of Honor for his unparalleled heroism and bravery is stronger than ever. We must give full recognition to heroes like Tibor Reuben. All right, so we have a few stories back in the Korean War, some 40 years ago now, and still we have to remember that what people did for our country and the heroism that they actually excelled in during that time, ultimately for us. A little bit more modern, but still 30 to 20 years ago, we're talking about Vietnam. Again, maybe people didn't appreciate the war, which maybe they have reason to, but again, like we said, that they were called from the president and the army to do a job, and they did take up the call and did the job. Colonel Jack H. Jacobs, Medal of Honor recipient, Vietnam. Thousands of Jews responded to Americans' call to arms to fight in Vietnam. Jack H. Jacobs was one of them. Jacobs entered the Army in 1966 as a lieutenant and served until 1987, when he retired as a colonel and as a hero. Colonel Jacobs received the Congressional Medal of Honor in 1969 for saving the lives of 12 soldiers and stopping an ambush of his unit in Vietnam. It was on March 9, 1968, in the province of Ken Phuong, the Republic of Vietnam, that Jacobs' actions in combat were beyond the call of duty and the risk of his life. At the time, Jacobs was a first lieutenant serving as assistant battalion advisor, 2nd Battalion, 16th Infantry, 9th Army Infantry, during an operation in the Ken Phuong area. The 2nd Battalion was advancing to make contact with the enemy when it came under intense heavy machine gun and mortar fire from a Viet Cong battalion positioned in well-fortified positions. American casualties were high as they became disorganized. Jacob was with the command element of the lead company. He called for and directed airstrikes against the enemy positions so the Americans could hope to regroup for a renewed attack. The enemy continued to shower them with mortars and machine gun fire. Jacobs had to take command since the senior officers were either dead or seriously wounded. He had been wounded in the head by a mortar fragment and was bleeding profusely. His vision was impaired by the flow of blood from his head. He saw a wounded man out in the open. Despite his wounds and poor vision, he went out to bring the man in under intense enemy fire. His administration of first aid saved the man's life. Jacobs then went out again to bring the wounded company commander. He then made repeated trips into the field to bring in the wounded and weapons while the enemy continued to rake the area with mortar and machine gun fire. On 3 separate occasions, he contacted and drove off the enemy patrols that were looking for the Allied wounded and weapons. Jacobs single-handedly killed 3 Vietnam Cong soldiers and wounded many more. Jacobs' Congressional Medal of Honor citation tells the rest of the story. His gallant actions and extraordinary heroism saved the life of 1 U.S. advisor and 13 Allied soldiers. Through his efforts, the Allied company was restored to an effective fighting unit and prevented defeat of the friendly forces by a strong and determined enemy. Jacobs, by his conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action in the highest traditions of military service, has reflected great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army. Jacob also received 2 Silver Stars, 3 Bronze Stars, and 2 Purple Heart medals. Jacob is a resident of New Jersey and is involved with investment banking. He is designated as a Brigadier General in the event of mobilization in the defense of his country. Jacobs is the 15th Jew to receive the Congressional Medal of Honor. His heroism and gallantry in battle follows a long line of Jewish heroes who have given themselves to defend his country from its enemies. We'll continue on with interesting stories about Vietnam. As much as many people, when they were against the war, there were people there fighting bravely for our side, including the Jewish people. Private First Class Stuart BURR, a hero in Vietnam. Private First Class Stuart BURR of the United States Marine received a Silver Star Medal for his bravery in Vietnam. He was killed while bringing much-needed supplies to his unit. BURR was serving as a rifleman with Company E, 2nd Battalion, 9th Marine, 3rd Marine Division, in connection with operations against the enemy of the Republic of Vietnam. BURR's squad was maneuvering to reinforce an adjacent unit which had become heavily engaged in battle with the enemy in Cam Lo area on April 23, 1969. As the squad moved forward, it also fell under attack from a well-entrenched enemy force in a bunker complex. The enemy was using automatic weapons and mortar shells against BURR squad, which was sustaining heavy casualties. The Marines fought back by firing into the enemy bunkers. Soon the ammunition supply was nearly depleted. The squad could get more ammunition from adjacent Marine squad. However, there was an open field between them which was being swept with enemy bullets. Without regret for its own safety, BURR fearlessly dashed across the fire-swept terrain to the other unit to obtain a supply of ammunition. He started maneuvering back with the precious supply of machine gun rounds when he was wounded by enemy fire. Ignoring his painful wounds, he continued moving forward with the ammunition. As he reached his unit, he was mortally wounded by grenade fragments. His Silver Star Medal citation issued by the President of the United States summed up his action. His heroic and timely actions inspired all who observed him and contributed significantly to the accomplishment of his unit's mission. By his courage, bold initiative, and unwavering devotion to duty, Private First Class BURR upheld the highest traditions of the Marine Corps of the United States Naval Service. His gallantry gave his life in the service of his country. BURR was raised in Passaic, New Jersey, where he graduated from Passaic High School. He was on the high school's track and cross-country teams. He had been in college for 2 years when he decided to enlist in the Marine Corps to fight in Vietnam. His family received a Silver Star posthumously at a Passaic City Hall ceremony. Rabbi Solomon Weinberger of Tiferes Israel in Passaic remembered BURR as being a leader of youth who unselfishly gave of himself to help others. In addition to the Silver Star Medal, BURR received the Purple Heart Medal, the Vietnam Campaign Medal, Vietnam Service Medal, and the National Defense Medal. BURR is one of the many Jews who had fought and died for his country, His name will always be among those that are Jewish heroes in America. So on the battlefield, of course, there were many heroes, but now something in the officer ranks, we have to also remember the people who led the military, and we're going to talk about two Vietnam-era Jewish generals. In every war which the United States was involved, there were Jewish generals in leadership roles. Vietnam was no exception. Major General Stanley Hyman and Robert Solomon had major roles in the Vietnam War. Hyman was a major when he received the Legion of Merit by the direction of the President of the United States. He was attached to the military intelligence of the United States Army in Vietnam from August 1986 to August 1969. It was for his excellent work during the period that he received this decoration. Utilizing his extensive intelligence experience, Hyman was able to acquire a voluminous amount of information. Hyman was able to use his intelligence information to predict the enemy's intentions and plans which help American commanders fight the enemy. His citation reads, "Through his initiative, resourcefulness, adaptability to change and readiness to resort to the expedient, he has contributed measurably to the free world effort in the Republic of Vietnam. Major Hyman's professional competence and outstanding achievements are in keeping with the highest traditions of the military service and received great credit on himself, his unit, and the United States Army." Hyman quickly rose through the ranks to become a major general. He was born on June 25, 1936, in Long Branch, New Jersey. Hyman is married to the former Rosala Carol Mirsky, and they have 4 children. He holds the Distinguished Service Medal, Legion of Merit with 2 oak leaf clusters, Defense Meritorious Service Medal, Meritorious Service Medal with 2 oak leaf clusters, Department of the Army Staff Badge, the Organization of the Joint Chiefs of Staff badge. Solomon is another Jewish officer who served his country in Vietnam. He had made many notable contributions to the war effort in the Republic of Vietnam. He served as Chief of the Command Information Division for the United States Military Assistant Command in Vietnam and was active there from July 1968 to July 1969. After his tour of duty in Vietnam, Solomon was sent to Europe to command the 1st Battalion, 35th Armored, 4th Armored Division. He had many responsible positions throughout his military career. He was promoted to Major General in January 1982. His decorations include the Legion of Merit, Defense Superior Service Medal, Meritorious Service Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster, Joint Service Commendation Medal, the American Army Commendation Medal with 2 Oak Leaf Clusters. Born on December 14, 1930, in Baltimore, he has a Master of Science degree from Johns Hopkins University, Baltimore. He is married to the former Frances Nathanson, and they have 3 children. Hyman and Solomon have contributed to the legacy of Jews who have served their country in war. So even on the field and now in the officer corps, there's always Jewish people ready to serve their country. Now 3 more Jewish heroes of the Vietnam War. In the Jewish War Veterans Museum in Washington, D.C., there is an exhibit that makes a comparative examination of Jewish contributions to the World War I and to the Vietnam War. The exhibit compares 3 Jewish fighting men of each war: Roger Stephen Briskin, Fred Tzedek, and Joseph Ira Goldstein are the heroes of the Vietnam War. Briskin was a corporal in the United States Marines. He was born in 1947 and attended public school in Ardmore, Pennsylvania. Briskin was a quiet and conscientious student, took things seriously. He had planned to become a medical doctor. When he graduated from high school, the Vietnam War was in progress. Briskin felt he had a responsibility to help his country. He enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, went through basic training, and displayed leadership ability. It didn't take long before he was promoted to corporal. After Briskin was sent to Vietnam, his unit was immediately pressed into battle. It was in the Da Nang Quang Nam province on March 31st, 1967, when he was in the thick of fierce battle with the enemy, that Briskin saw one of his men wounded by the mortal attack against him. While attempting to rescue him, Briskin was killed by mortar fragments. He was recognized for his bravery and was awarded many citations posthumously. Captain Tzedek served with the United States Air Force 388th Tactical Fighter Wing in Korat, Thailand. He was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1946, went to public schools and to New York University, from which he graduated in 1968. Tzedek was commissioned as 2nd Lieutenant in the Air Force. He earned his Navigator wings in 1968 at the Mather Air Force Base in California. After he finished his fighting training, later he was to be certified as an Air Force Weapons System Officer in the F-4 Phantom fighter plane. In the Southeast Asia area of operation, Sedek flew 165 combat missions and logged more than 450 combat hours. His many decorations include the Air Force Distinguished Flying Cross and the Air Medal with 10 oak leaf clusters. He retired from the military as a colonel and had a productive career in the Federal Aviation Administration's Officer of Emergency Operations. Sedek and his wife provide a home for foster babies prior to their placement in a final foster home. Lieutenant Joseph Ira Goldstein, United States Navy Fighter Squadron VF-154, was born in Roosevelt, New Jersey in 1942. Goldstein graduated from Rutgers University in 1964. He enlisted in Officers Training School in Pensacola, Florida, where he became a naval flight officer. He was sent to Vietnam, where he flew about 110 combat missions. He received the Navy Unit Accommodation Medal, the Vietnam Gallantry Cross, 5 Air Medals, and other medals. After the Vietnam War, Goldstein taught ROTC courses at the University of Michigan until 1971. He then went to government service in Washington, D.C. Briskin, Sedek, and Goldstein are 3 of the thousands of Jews who fought at Vietnam. Some died, some were wounded, some brought the mental scars of war back with them. Again, as an American past war, as Jews respond to their country's call for fighting men. So as we take you through the Korean and Vietnam War, that we wanted to just be sure that that the Jewish people had their mark and the heroes, and the Jewish people fought bravely and heroically with the United States fighting forces. But of course, as we all know, is there is people who need to fight on the field, and we need officers. We also need, of course, special people, which are the inventors of war, and also not of war, God forbid, but of the military and the higher personnel and the politicians. So therefore, we're going to talk about a very, very important person in the American scene, Admiral Hyman George Rickover, father of the atomic-powered Navy. Vice Admiral Hyman George Rickover took the Navy into the atomic age with his persistence that the United States build their first atomic-powered submarine. He was born in Russia, Poland in 1900 to Rachel Nee Unger and Abraham Rickover, a tailor who brought his family to Chicago. After completing high school in 1918, Rickover received an appointment to the United States Naval Academy, where he was often confronted with anti-Semitism. He was graduated in 1922 and commissioned an ensign, assigned to sea duty. He remained there for 5 years before being assigned to the Naval Academy to do graduate work in electrical engineering. He continued his studies at Columbia University, where he received his MS degree in 1929. Rickover's various assignments include his first command post aboard the USS Finch in the Philippines. When World War II started, he was placed in charge of the electrical section of the Bureau of Ships in Washington, D.C., the first of many wartime appointments. In 1946, he was assigned to Oak Ridge, the site of the development of the atomic bomb. Rickover visited other nuclear research centers, and he became convinced ships could be powered by nuclear energy. Almost alone in his belief, he finally convinced the Navy to begin to develop a nuclear submarine in 1947. Before long, he was placed in charge of the project and worked with the Atomic Energy Commission, which was going to build the reactors. The reactors was built in Idaho, the submarine in Groton, Connecticut. Finally, in January 1954, the first atomic-powered submarine, the Nautilus, was launched. Despite his success, Rickover faced opposition both towards his work and towards his open criticism and remarks. After he had been twice passed over for promotion to Admiral, the naval codes require retirement if promotion is denied twice. Congressional leaders suspected that he was a victim of foul play. Following an investigation, he was named a Rear Admiral in 1953. His many plans for nuclear ships were put aside during the congressional hearings. He is often credited with being President Jimmy Carter's mentor, but was a critic of President Reagan's defense budget, when he considered to be wasteful and too large. In 1982, he was forced into retirement at age 82. When Rickover retired, he expressed regrets on the role he played in nuclear proliferation and called for an international agreement to outlaw nuclear weapons and reactors because of the radiation dangers that they pose. So behind the military, as it goes, good generals and admirals in our case, that have the ideas in order to equip our army with the absolute best level of armaments. And this is very interesting, and they talk about women's liberation today, but we're talking about an assistant defense secretary, a Jewish woman, Anna M. Rosenberg. When Anna M. Rosenberg was sworn in as the Assistant Secretary of Defense under George C. Marshall on November 15, 1950, she achieved the highest post ever held by a woman in the national military establishment. Her task was to coordinate the Defense Department's manpower, which had been divided among many agencies. Anna Rosenberg was born in 1902 in Budapest, Hungary, to Charlotte and Albert Lederer. Her mother was a talented author and illustrator of children's books, and her father was a successful furniture manufacturer. When a very large order for furniture was canceled, her father lost his business, and they immigrated to the United States to settle in the Bronx, New York. The day that she entered school, Anna became involved with economic and social issues. In World War I, she was very successful in selling Liberty bombs and thrift stamps for the war effort. She worked part-time in a base hospital in Manhattan. She married Julius Rosenberg, who was a serviceman, in 1919. And that year, she became a naturalized citizen. Anna Rosenberg became involved in politics in the early 1920s. She made many important political connections in the ensuing years. When Franklin Roosevelt was elected governor of New York, he frequently consulted her on labor matters. In the 1930s, she served the federal government in many capacities, primarily in labor and human relations. In 1937, she was named chairwoman of the New York State Constitutional Committee. And in 1938, she was named by President Roosevelt to a committee to study industrial relations in Great Britain and Sweden. During those years, she developed a consulting business, which was very successful. She served on many committees and boards during World War II. She was the director of the Office of Defense and regional director of Health and Welfare Services. She was a member of the New York City and State War Councils and held the secretariatship of the President's Combined War Labor Board. In July 1944, Anna Rosenberg was sent to the European Theater of Operations by President Roosevelt as his personal observer. She did the same for President Truman the following summer. After the war, she served on many boards for the city and state of New York. In the Korean War, Anna Rosenberg was appointed to a 12-person committee to advise former Air Secretary W. Stuart Symington on the mobilization policy. After she was appointed the Assistant Secretary of Defense, she worked with Secretary George Marshall on a draft for the Senate Armed Service Committee, which became known as the Universal Military Service and Training Bill. Rosenberg received the Medal of Freedom in 1945 and the U.S. Medal of Merit in 1947. She continued to serve her country through the years. In 1968 and 69, President Johnson appointed her to serve on the Commission on Income Maintenance, which exempted all welfare and income support programs. Rosenberg died on May 9, 1983. She was a model for Jewish women to follow in service and dedication to our country. In her own way, she was a Jewish hero. We're talking about Jewish heroes in the war and helping the war effort from on the field, in the officership, and on the scenes. We truly see that Jewish people did take a part and are Jewish war heroes in America. Thank you very much.